Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Unbound theory, Unbound identity theory, and this is part of a playlist. You should watch it in the order that it is in the playlist. Thank you. And today we're going to talk about where did Unbound identity theory emerge, in my humble opinion, and I can tell you that. So here's where it emerged. It specifically emerged in my humble opinion, in a small white suburban house in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, in the zip code 53147. Okay, I left off the of course I know by heart the exact street location, but I left that off, and the reason why I left that off was this is a historical site, but it very much a historical site, and but it sits in the middle of the suburbs, right? And I think there are houses around it, and honestly, I think that the American government should probably secure this site, and maybe in the entire block, right? Offer what's due for every single house. But this is a part of American history. This home is frequently discussed as the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so it's important for a lot of reasons. So one, Gygax used this specifically to, he talked, to my knowledge, he talked with Dave Arneson on the phone about crafting Dungeons and Dragons, and he talked a lot about this idea of people in war and combat and skirmish are not just chits, the way that war games had dealt with them. They're not just troops. Like, I want to know the identity of the people who are on the front lines. I want to know what their first name is, what their last name is. I want to know their personality. I want to know their favorite foods. I want to know their favorite colors. And he built Dungeons and Dragons to pull out these people from these skirmish game situations and just pull a single thread, or a thread of gold. And he was saying, hey, these player characters, these are new identities that are going to be inhabited by other human beings, right? And we need to know every aspect of them. And this is the heart of the game. This isn't knowing the personality of the combatant, right? Knowing them fully, right? And allowing another person to inhabit them. All this design, and all from 1974 to 1986, Gary Gygax was intimately connected to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And for 12 years, for about 2 years before 1974, and for 12 years after, he went just 100% full momentum toward building this Unbound identity, toward saying we need to know the full person of these player characters, and building this path where building this vessel that an IRL person can just pour themselves into and have additional identities, additional lives that ran parallel to their own life for a period, right? It's incredible. It's really this had never been done in any other, in anything, let alone any game, right? There just was, so, community theater, the play, the people in the play don't craft those characters. They're one director, the writer, one writer says this is the person, and you're going to dump yourself into it, right? But Dungeon Masters is saying, hey, here's this player character. We're going to build this player character before we hit the table together. Once we hit the table, I'm handing agency over to you, and you're going to bring this person to life. You're going to show me the way they blink their eyes, the way they speak, their entire loadout, right? Every aspect of their humanity is in your hands, and then I'm going to connect with you to do this. And all of this happened in this very unique, this very bog standard American suburban home, right? But that home today right? It's not treated. It's not treated like anything connected to a game. Below you will find the link to Matthew Mercer and Satine Phoenix going together to this home, right? And they treat it like a pilgrimage. They touch it like and say, this home has, they are not going to leave it untouched. Like they've made the journey together, and they're like, this is special, right? And pilgrimage, watch that video, is not an exaggeration. Satine Phoenix weeps when she arrives. It's incredible, right? And many people know about this home, and it is a part of Americana. And the only question is they're going to, is this going to be built up like the Liberty Bell, right? And people from all over the world will come and see where Unbound Identity was born, right? And the reason why is, increasingly you see just lots and lots of things surrounding Dungeons and Dragons where it is absolutely not in any way interacted with like a game. It's interacted with like a part of historic Americana, right? And that's one more thing about the location. It's in America. And when Gary and there's so much about the location of the where, right? Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, right? This is in America. When he's bringing this forward from 1972 to 1986, he's doing it from America, knowing that the flow of culture in the world, goes America to the rest of the world, knowing that what he built in America would literally go to every single continent, and it has, right? And this has not happened the other way. There really aren't, there aren't things that allow people to inhabit other identities that have flowed from South America to America, right? And the other way around. So he knew that there was going to be global reach on this. One more thing that's really special about the Where is America is a innovation engine. It is, it's just constantly, it pulses these huge ideas that radiate out to every state, and then other countries do it 10, 20 years later, right? And our culture from America radiates out to the world, right? And we kind of have a problem that like the whole world's doing all these great things, and we're like, we ain't got time for it. Sorry, right? This is America, right? You get our culture. It's not the other way around. And sometimes it breaks through and it cracks, and the flow goes the other way. I think anime and manga are one of those things, but there are entire countries that generally America ignores. That's not right, but it's just there. And I think Gary knew this flow, that what he built in America would radiate out. This other thing is, a lot of things we build, these huge innovation sparks, like these catalysts that just fire off and go throughout the world, they come from the coasts, right? They come from the left coast, and they come from the right coast. They come from the East Coast. They come from the West Coast. They come from California. They come from Boston. They come from Seattle. They come from Miami, right? But Gary built this beautiful thing that is unmatched anywhere. This light, this thing that really did multiply the amount of life that people could have, right? Like, people who don't play Dungeons and Dragons are stuck in their one person, right? It's all they're going to be. They're never going to be female. They're never going to be a different orientation. They're never going to be a different race, right? They're just people, you can grow up outside of Dungeons and Dragons and remain for your entire life, a cis white male, right? But not Dungeons and Dragons players. They can be 10 different races, 10 different genders, 10 different orientations. Gary built this from the start, right? And really, in my humble opinion, this is what crafted Unbound Identity, right? And once it was built, like, it's just, you could see it. It pulses like a heart today, right? And people are just drawn to it, right? Because it's so radiant and beautiful, and it's so disconnected from money, right? Like, the ability to do this is absolutely incredible. But he did it in the heartland, right? He wasn't some Ivy Leaguer who had been gifted 100 different privileges, living on the West Coast or the East Coast, and just, stacking a pile of culture upon the culture they had already. Like, he did this beautiful, wonderful thing from America's heartland, And a lot of times they're, the heartland, we literally call it flyover states, right? Which is terrible and wrong. And Gary's like, no, Wisconsin ain't a flyover state. This is the birth of unbound identity for America and for the world, right? And I'm hoping you're starting to see this. Like, if you look at Dungeons and Dragons carefully, if you look at what he created, there's so many clues that this is not a game, that this is what I'm saying, like that in my humble opinion, it's so shockingly clear that he built a human improvement engine, specifically a catalyst to spark and guide the next level of human interaction, right? And to release people from this shriveled, desiccated form of humanity where we live on only one person, and where empathy is harder, and where, and so this location is incredibly important. This is the where of unbound identity, in my humble opinion, is Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, 53147. People go there as a pilgrimage today. They will take and, roll past the house in their car with their dice pressed to the window. It's a different space, right? And when you see the energy starting to surround this home, when you watch that video below of Mercer and Satine Phoenix, this ain't some normal house. This is not Chutes and Ladders. The idea that Dungeons and Dragons is a game increasingly becomes laughable the more closely you look at it. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.